my talk's actually quite silly. I am not saving the world. I'm making games. So, yeah, it's totally my shtick. Okay, so my name is Matt Ditton, and yeah, I was asked to come and talk tonight, and it was interesting. It was kind of out of the blue because Xavier found all this stuff that I made ages ago in processing, and I was really big in the processing community, and it was this kind of direct path that led me to making games. And so the whole talk today, he wanted me to talk about that and how these things lead to other things. And so I'm going to do the talk on creative coding for fun and profit, or how you go from processing to $1 million company in 100,000 very painful steps. This is the very first processing sketch I ever made, and I resurrected it on the weekend. And I made this. I wanted to make a GIF. I'm shit at GIFs, so I made the GIF. And at the time, I was actually an artist in the games industry, and I was fascinated by programming. So I was playing around with this weird little shitty program called Processing, which was like not even version 1 back then. So you should all get onto it. It's amazing. It was back in Java. Remember Java? Yep. Okay, and so this is actually the most recent thing I've done. This is about to be released. This is our 1.6 update to our game Shooty Skies. It is available on everything, and it's completely free. Go crazy, enjoy it, watch ads. I get like 1/4 cent every time I open that. This was the kind of first game out of Mighty Games, which is one of the companies that I run. So here's how you get from A to B. So it's actually an 8-step process, and this starts off roughly 20 years ago when I was doing photography, and I found one of my old photo boxes. They may be blood, they are fingerprints, so it was a bit weird, I didn't know what they were. And so at the time I was doing a lot of this. I was doing a lot of band photos, and this was, if anyone's old, you may remember, there was the world's most amazing concert that no one went to called Alternative Nations, which is a wonderful cash-in, wonderful cash-in to grunge. And Nine Inch Nails played, Faith No More, Lou Reed, and no one went. It was amazing. It was great. Anyway, so I did that, and then this strange thing happened where I met a girl, and she gave me glandular fever. So I lost 6 months of my life, and I started to do stuff like this down the end, which is actually, I started to do a lot of digital imaging. So in case you can't count, he's got 6 fingers. And so that became highly controversial, and they wanted to kick me out because it's like, using a computer, what the fuck? Needless to say, I was right, and the degree changed, and now they just teach everything on computers. And so after that, I then went into advertising, which I hated. And this was actually the company that I used to work for, JAB Creative in Brisbane. That was the door that I went into every day, which incidentally, it's in the Fortitude Valley region, so that was a secondary business of a lovely woman called Cheryl, that when we would finish in the middle of the night, she would be starting work, and she was lovely. We all got on very well, but her boyfriend was really creepy. And so this was some of the classic work that I did. Flying logos for PowerPoint. This is for our client, Barclay Molum. They loved this shit. They thought it was brilliant. This is 97, 98. Videos in PowerPoint were cutting edge. It was like, no one knew how to do this. We actually had this trick where we would get a single pixel transparent PNG, and we would stretch it across the master slide, so that it was so big you couldn't see the corners of it. So that actually, if you double-clicked on it, it would crash. It would basically crash PowerPoint, which is a fantastic way to get repeat business because they can't edit that PowerPoint anymore. So like, that doesn't work. Oh man, I just saw that.
So that's the game, is it?
That's the game. That's right.
That's what I click on.
Yeah, that's right. It's a fun and profit. All right, so advertising completely sucked, and I left that and I started to make. I got into the games industry, and this is 2000. And in 2000, I started working for a company called Khronos Studios up in Brisbane. I was employee number 8, and this was my first game, Championship Surfer. It's the greatest surfing game that, again, no one ever played because it is unplayable. Because the controls are just totally, just don't make any sense unless you're a world championship surfer who told us how to put the controls in the game. So it was incredible. No one else could play it. Yeah, it was shocking. And then I spent the next 5 years of my life working on this, which is Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, which was a kids platforming title that came out on everything, and I literally spent 5 years of my life working on this game.
So you were a graphic artist and all these things?
I was. So I was actually the level modeler, and I became sort of the lead artist and art director towards the end of that 5 years. So I actually started as I made palm trees, and then I made rubber ducks in Championship Surfer, and then I would basically make environments and backgrounds, and then would start making characters and stuff like that. I'm actually a very bad character modeler. So after that, I decided that also sucked, because I went from a company of 8 people to a company of 85, super fast, and company culture was getting really, really sketchy. And I'm like, oh man, I'll never work in a company with 85 people. This is crazy. I need to go back. And so I went to Pandemic, where I was employee number 12, which was great. And the lesson here is that Pandemic became 180. So it just doesn't work. But at the time, I started working on Destroy All Humans 2, and Destroy All Humans 1 at the end, Destroy All Humans 2. And I actually became a technical artist. And so what I started to do is, this is where I kind of started to get into the programming side of art. And so this was actually one of the tools that I wrote in the world's greatest software, the world's greatest 3D modeling package, Softimage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I don't even recognize it.
Yeah, it's the shit, man. This was as good as it ever got.
And that's after XSI, right?
Well, this is the start of XSI.
Right.
This was okay. And this is so good. So anyway, basically my job was I just made tools to make the art team really, really productive. And so I wrote editors, and I wrote this is this overtly complicated material editor, but it was way better than text, which is what we were doing before. And so my whole job was to find ways to just automate all these processes so that the art team could just make cool stuff. And at the same time, I was also starting to use processing. And so this is a game that I made in an afternoon, and it's called Face Pong. And you can totally get what's happening here. So I'm face tracking my head. This is the much younger and shaved me, and it's a game of Pong where your head's the paddle, and it's really difficult to play. It hurts after a while. Yeah.
So when did you get the $1 million downloads?
That's right. Yeah, I got 1,000 watches. This was maybe I could make stuff. Anyway, so now fast forward just a little tiny bit, and we hit the GFC. Who remembers the GFC? Yeah. Okay. All right. So the kids in the audience may not remember this, but what occurred was that basically the world ran out of money and everything was on fire. And the Australian games industry literally just imploded. And the industry was vast. It covered nearly every capital city. You had about 2,000 people in total. A large amount of foreign workers, from different countries and stuff. Everybody was working different things. You had, at its peak, Khronos Studios had gotten to about 420 people across 3 states. And then across the death summer of 2009, all the money just dried up. All contracts started to end. Basically American publishers just ran out of cash. The stock market completely tanked. They ran out of money. And so Australian companies were dependent on work for hire, and so all of these huge studios just started collapsing. And this was systematic, and it rolled across the country. And so what happened was, I'm sitting down, I'm having a great time, I'm doing the job I love, and now I'm filling a ute with all of the office supplies, thinking we're going to start a company next week, because we emptied the building. It was great. It was great. It was really dodgy. But we didn't tell anyone, and no one cared. So what ended up was that I actually started this really productive section of my life being a freelance programmer. And so, but I was a programmer that could make things look pretty. And so what occurred was I started to get these interesting, odd kind of jobs between advertising and visualization, and it was basically, there was a lot of very exploratory work where people wanted stuff that looked really different and kind of cool. And so particle systems were always my thing. I just love a good particle system. And that culminated in this work, which was actually for SBS. And so this is the interstitial for the first Australians documentary, great documentary. But all of this is this sort of procedural particle system that uses a whole bunch of like current noise and just crazy fun stuff to, basically move around to audio and stuff like that. And it was just this, it was me sitting in a room making esoteric and completely difficult to understand programs. And then I would walk into I would be the weird guy who'd walk into the advertising agency and say, yeah, okay, so you press this, and you do that, and then we're just going to edit this config file and put these 5 lines in. Yeah, and hey, how cool is that? Everyone's like, whoa! And looking back on it, it's like, man, I've made some ugly shit. But at the same time, I was also trying out this mobile game thing. And so I had an iPhone 3G, and I thought, man, this thing's kind of cool. And so I was using Open Frameworks, which is still around and really cool. I was using Open Frameworks to make this little game called Swarm, where you're, again, this crazy particle system alien that's just destroying things and eating people, which was the hilarious part because people sound like popcorn when you ate them. And so,
were you weren't on your own while you were doing this stuff?
This was all just me.
So you built this from scratch, graphics, coding, everything?
Yeah. Oh, I had a friend help me with graphics actually because he was really good at doing it. Strangely enough, I have forgotten way more things than I know. So, if you ask me to model a level now, it'll be a really ugly level. But I once was really good.
If you do it for free, I'll take it.
That's right. And so, while this was going on, I was getting paid fine, and it was okay, but it was like really sporadic. It's life of a freelancer. It was a bit sketchy. And so this thing popped up where I basically remember way back when I was doing photography and they hated me. Well, they called me back up again. This is 10 years later, and they were like, oh, could you come and teach a class? And so I started to teach. So I was at Griffith University in Brisbane. I actually started to teach at the games degree up there. And after a while they figured out I wasn't an idiot, and so I actually ran the department, and this is the first graduating class of the QCA game developers, game dev. Anyway, it's a degree about game development. So the cool thing is that there's 11 people in the photo, and 7 of them are actually in the industry, which is awesome. And actually these guys, hang on, this guy, Paul and Nick, and originally Kai, but she left, but Paul and Nick and this other guy, Jack, who isn't in the photo, they started a game development studio called Well Placed Cactus, and they work in the arcade with me. And I hire them. I get them to do work for me. It's great. I'm still the teacher. So, and then this is Kylie. She works down the road at Electronic Arts, and Delia is in London now. She's just this amazing web programmer. AJ is actually in Sydney, and he's doing all this crazy animation stuff all the time. I see everybody on Facebook, and it's really cool. It was like a great thing. I would advise it for a year. Don't stay longer than a year would be my advice. So, and then all these cool things happened, you got to see kids that, you know, they start as first years and they're really annoying, and then they become really good at something, and then, you know, they win awards and stuff, which was great. And this is Henrik. Henry works at the Voxel Agents, also at the arcade. He's working on this game called the Time Project, and it's really arty and really pretentious. It's going to be great. It's really annoying. But anyway, he's cool. And so, teaching education completely sucks after a few years, because the teaching is great, the politics is a nightmare. And so, the entire government is just destroying higher education. Don't get me started. So, I decided that I would move to Melbourne. Coincidentally, I had a huge breakup and she got Brisbane. So when I moved down to Melbourne, I thought I could go back to this freelance thing. That was cool. And so what I started to do was installations. And I made a company called Many Monkeys. We were really drunk at the pub and we thought it was a great idea. And it's about, you know, it's like many monkeys that the typewriter makes the works of Shakespeare. 3 jugs in, it's a great idea. Anyway, so it was formed because at the time I was still doing freelance work, and this was a project called Curious Creatures that originally came out of Splendor in the Grass, and it was funded by Splendid Arts, and it was basically this like installation that occurred at the music festival, and it's this huge projection wall. We rear project these silhouettes. And it's all real time. It's basically out of Unity rendering on these huge screens. And there are Connect sensors all down the bottom. And then when people walk in front of them, their sort of silhouettes turn up, and then they can like tap the bird, and it kind of goes and runs away. Then at the back we have video cameras looking at everybody, and so we have these audio triggers that we fire off to scare the crap out of people. It's great. And what happened here was that 2 years later we got called up and they said, you want to take it on the road? Come to South Africa and headline this theatre show. Yep. So we did that, and South Africa. Yeah, that's a place. Sketchy place. You know how hard it is to get data in South Africa? It's like, man, it's just incredible. Amazing mobile phone network, and Blackberries are really popular. Anyway. And so the installation started to lead to things that were actually like made me look really cool. And so this was at the Australian Open a couple of years ago. This was the ANZ Future Play exhibit, and what it was this is a real-time 4-player doubles match where you play against the other people on the court. And we had 10 connects ringing the ground and an overhead camera mapping you as you moved. And then you had PlayStation Move controllers mapping your swing. So as you swung, you would run around, and it was literally the world's most expensive version of Pong. It's just 15 grand just to turn it on, and then you had to go buy TVs, and it was awesome. One of the best parts was they had these like, you know, you had the Move controller, but they wanted them to look cool and futuristic. So they built this thing that would go over the top of it and like attach to it to look like a, you know, Tron kind of like racket. And I'm like, you know, people are gonna just really swing that. You should not put that there. And in the first day, I was totally right, because a guy just swung and just like smashed the television, and it was great. And it was like, that's like 8 grand straight down the toilet, and I was right. So that was good. Okay, so all of that is occurring. I'm running this company. There's a bunch of people who are all working together. This isn't just me at this point. There's actually like there were 8 of us on that job, and it took 6 months, and it was just crazy. But at the time, this other thing was occurring that I was really interested in, which was this notion of free-to-play games and mobile games. Because installations were great. It's really good for drunk people and the under 12. But if you want to make something for a lot of people, like making something on a mobile phone felt like a really cool thing. You could make something really lovely and very cute. And so we started to experiment with this game. And this is Breath of Light. And this came out under Many Monkeys last year, and it's this really very peaceful, very relaxing puzzle game. Yeah. It's all part of it. It's like, look, it's like if Delaunay triangulation and vector fields can teach you anything, it's how to make that game. So, yeah, this actually, the background is this Delaunay triangle field that I wrote like 10 years earlier in processing, and I dug it back up. So, and the particle connection system, I'd written that like 5 years earlier in Open Framework, so I dug that back up and brought it into Unity. So it was this kind of like culmination of a whole bunch of things to make this game. And but this was a premium title. You would pay for it. You pay for it, and that's it. You just play it. But the interesting part about that is that there's, when you look at mobile games, if you want to make something for a lot of people and you want to make it very inclusive and you want people to see it, you kind of want to make it for free. You want a lot of people to play it. Hang on, I'll get to that bit. But this is actually the next game that Many Monkeys is working on. It's another premium title. This is called Leaves, and it's this cute little adventure game, sponsored by Phil Victoria, because that's why the giant logo is there. And it's basically this journey where you're this character called Tagan. We never actually get it right. And they're on this quest to find out this sort of history of their father as they kind of go through this kind of haunted forest. So it's
This is not for mobile anymore.
oh no, this actually this is Steam. So we lead on Steam and then hopefully go to consoles down the line. Right. But yeah, it's a very narrative heavy focused game and it's very premium and it's like $20 and it's all the bells and whistles, and it'll take us another 18 months and whatever. What we're really concentrating on these days is also making these free-to-play games under that mighty game, and you're a cat flying an airplane. So that's the way that it works. And this all came about because when I moved down to Melbourne, I became friends with a whole bunch of other developers, and one of them was Matt Hall. And then it was Andy Sum, and these two guys went ahead and they made a game called Crossy Road. And who's played Crossy Road? Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. So Crossy Road became it's phenomenon. It's 125 million downloads now, and it's made a lot of money, and a lot of kids love it. And coincidentally, it's led to this was released a week and a half ago, and this is Disney Crossy Road, and it's basically Crossy Road redone with all Disney characters and the entire Disney lineup. Basically, I'm going to be making this game for the next 2 years, releasing updates and patches all the time. It's crazy.
So you're involved in this game too?
Well, we made this. So Mighty Games made this.
So Hipster the Whale made Crossy Road, didn't you?
Okay, so there are. So hang on, it goes to this point. So the moral of this whole story, is I truly believe that getting the right people in the room just kind of resolves all the problems. And these are the right people in the room. So this is Mighty Games. There's me, Ben Britton, Andy Sum, and Matt Hall. And so Mighty Games is owned by the four of us, and Hipster Whale is owned by these two. And Hipster Whale employs no one. It's an incredibly successful, but costs nothing studio, because two dudes made Crossy Road. Yes?
What about Giselle?
They do employ Giselle. My mistake. Sorry, they do employ Giselle. But she's probably going to shift to Mighty. And so Mighty was a company that Ben and I started because we were really interested in this whole notion of free-to-play games and making things for a large market, making things for kids that were fun and very accessible. And Matt was interested in that as well, so Matt joined, and then we started experimenting with a whole bunch of stuff, and we made like 4 or 5 prototypes that all sucked. It was just terrible. And we all got burnt out on that, and we all went, all right, cool. I've got to finish this Breath of Light thing, and Ben was finishing this Tin Man thing, and Matt was like, I've got this idea about a Frogger thing, I'm going to go do that. And so the Frogger thing worked out pretty well, and that became Crossy Road. And then Matt called up and went, I really need some help. We can't keep, there's only 2 people here, we can't keep working on this. And so Mighty started to basically help out. Ben and I started to help him, and we were kind of like helping him on updates and all the rest of it. And then basically, 2 people helping became 3 people helping, became 4 people helping, became a studio of 15 people, where 10 of them are just working on Disney Crossy Road, and we've been making it for a year, and then we just shipped it. So this is Mighty Games. Actually, it's not. There's like 4 more, and we just sit in a room and make games and have deep, long conversations about things that seem completely ridiculous to just everyone else. We're currently working on a clicker game involving a tower, and there was this elaborate discussion today about, how much the coins should splay out to represent how happy you are when you buy an extra thing. And that took 20 minutes. It was just ridiculous. And then it was like, should the tentacle that's tapping, should that be animated from below or from above? Yeah. So these are my days now. So that, I think, that's it. So that's the whole journey. So I've had this really long, bizarre, elaborate career that has spanned lots and lots of things, to the point where now I'm always amazed when I manage to make something. Today I wrote an exporter in Illustrator in JavaScript, and I remembered how much I fucking hate JavaScript. Oh god, what a nightmare. That's the best bit of code that I've written in about 2 weeks. And before that I wrote this voxel exporter thing. So what I do day to day is kind of all over the place and a bit strange. So that's where creative coding leads you, just this kind of mess. Any questions?
Firstly,
yeah, I've got a question. So it sounds like you've really sort of taken hold of all the opportunities that have come along the way, but obviously, it's easy to go off the path. Did you have this kind of path in mind, or did you just end up here? And how did you stay on the track?
Every decision made perfect sense when I made it.
That's it.
I've done a lot of kind of following my nose at the time, and a lot of these opportunities have honestly, a lot of them have been kind of financial. Like there's been situations where it's like, oh god, I really need money. If I didn't need the money, I'd probably still be a photographer. But I was doing a lot of stuff and I really enjoyed it, and then I was a broke student looking down the barrel of doing honours, and I'm like, this just completely sucks. And at the time I was visualizing cell movement in 3D software by brain chemistry. Like, it was this really esoteric thing that involved a different way of looking at photography, and it was really interesting, and it would have led me down a totally different path, but I was completely broke. So I was like, and my friend was like, we need a guy to make animated train track crap in PowerPoint. Can you make a logo fly? I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And so I would do, and then that paid really crap after a while, so it's like, this sucks, and then I took a job in games, and that was great. And it was only, the only decision that I ever made that wasn't really financial was when I left education and decided, oh man, I want to get back to making things. That was the kind of thing where it's like, I'd gone so far down this path of going, God, I just want a paycheck, that it was like, I feel dead inside when I wake up in the morning. And so then it was like, I could just move here, and I could move to Melbourne, and I could try something. And if it all falls apart, I can get a job. And so I gave myself kind of 6 months, 9 months to kind of find a few things to see if I could just make it work. And while I was here, I thought, if I started a company, it'd be easier to apply for grants and do that kind of stuff, and have an identity that wasn't just me walking in the door. If I walk in the door with a business card that says I have a company, it makes me look more important. Pro tip. And And people think you're amazing because you got an ABN. It's like, you can get one tomorrow. It's not hard. And yeah, so a lot of opportunities have come about, and a lot of decisions. I've made a lot of decisions based on this would be really cool to do, but I've also made a lot of decisions about this would actually pay well and it would be cool to do. So the worst decisions I've ever made have been purely financial.
So that's interesting because
yeah.
From my perspective, it sounds like, well, it's actually a good thing to be financially motivated, but at the same time, that's not the be all and end all you're saying.
With enough drinks, I will more than happily destroy any argument about the notion of the starving artist. I hate it. It's a horrible, vile, disgusting myth that just it keeps generations of people impoverished. There should be no reason why people don't get paid. You work, you do good work, you should get paid, and like that's always been the case. I've always believed in it. But if you're going to get paid and you don't believe in what you're doing, you'll make crap work. So that's life advice. Hashtag. Yep. Sorry. Good deal.
I was going to ask, what do you think's next on the horizon?
There's several things that I need to finish off. So shooting is lovely. It's actually like kids just love it. Like it's beautiful to make something and then find this group of people that just like really enjoy it. You get YouTube videos of kids playing it with their parents. And that sort of stuff's just really lovely. And so maintaining that and keeping that running is like, that's a huge priority. Disney Crossing Road, obviously that's a big thing, and we've kind of built a team to keep that operational. So, then my next big thing is to kind of ensure that this little weird creation of Mighty Games is kind of safe and it's sustainable. I've been through enough completely crap games companies I've seen enough crap games companies. I've been fortunate to the ones I've worked with, but I've seen enough games companies that have fallen apart to realize that unless you look after the financials, unless you ensure that there's money in the bank and you're not squandering it, and you're not making these crappy deals, and you're kind of like you're looking after people, then if you can set that up, then people have a lovely future and you can make great things. But if you're kind of just pissing money away or making stupid deals, then that just makes everything fall apart. So my short-term goal over the next couple of years is to make sure that Mighty is just looked after and everybody who's there is kind of safe. Walking in and going, hey, guess what? We're out of money. That just sucks. Like it's just terrible. Like it's horrible. So yeah.
You mentioned that Film Victoria was sponsoring one of your games.
Yeah.
Funding it. What was you talk about the process of going through from getting funding from them for a game?
Yeah. So the good thing about Melbourne is there's no mines here. It's a fundamental nature of Victoria that all the mining is gone, and so all they have is culture and the people that work here. And so this wonderful side effect is that if you make something that makes this state look really cool, they like to support it. So it's true. It's just true.
I love the way you phrase it.
Yeah. So Creative Victoria, they look after this department called Film Victoria, and Film Victoria historically always looked after the film industry. But part of their purview also is to look after games, and that's now this mounting part of that department. And so they have this budget. It's not huge, but it's pretty good. And every year there's usually 3 or 4 rounds. And if you go to the Film Victoria website, you can kind of like sign up, and they tell you when the rounds are. And it's this kind of competitive process where you basically apply. You kind of go, I'm really interested in making something like this, and I've made a prototype. So it's like, here's the playable version, even if it's a bunch of boxes doing stuff. And I've been a panelist on that for quite a while. And so I've been on both sides of it. Of like, I saw how the panelists work, and I've seen how that department works and the way that it's structured, and I've seen how you go and apply. And it's this semi-competitive process where everybody puts their hat in a jar, like, here's what I'd like to do. And then a whole bunch of industry people kind of look at it, and you kind of in the round, you're kind of judged against like, well, you know, that needs a bunch of work, but this looks like a really good idea, you know. And so, and then you have an interview, and you know, you've drawn up a budget, and you've kind of got a plan for how you're going to do it, and all of those things are interrogated, and it's quite particular. And if you're lucky enough, and you know the project plays well, and people can see what you're doing, and you've got a good plan, and you can prove that you know you can get this thing to market, then they can sponsor you up to certain amounts. So if the budgets move around every time, they kind of move around a bit. And I think the major cap at the moment is around $100,000, or less, basically. And so you can kind of like apply and you can usually get a little chunk of money, and then you can use that to get yourself on the way to make the rest of the game.
So is that, do they expect something in return from that, or is it just there's money from the state next on the rule that's going to boost the economy?
What's been very interesting is that originally it was kind of a loan with no interest. You would have to pay it back. But what happened was that they started to look at the way that economic model functions, where there's actually no benefit to the department in taking the money back. The benefit is actually in the studio, and this is also on the film side, is on the studio retaining the money in order to pay more people to make more stuff. So when they did the audit, this is going back a year and a half, I think, 2 years now. They did the audit across games and film. They found that the way that operated, it was more beneficial to not take the money back. And it actually built a better economy where people could be continually employed, and the business didn't have this overhead of having to pay back a loan. And so you had the businesses that actually were bastards and never paid the money, did great. And the people who paid back the money struggled and actually had a lot of trouble. So they made this decision of like, okay, this is now a grant, and you never pay it back. And so yeah, it's quite a revolutionary thing. But when they modelled it and when they looked at the way the economics work, it's a good idea. So, yeah.
I got two questions. If this time I'll probably skip. The first one is, I can see that you're interested in procedural programming. It's fascinating. What do you think? I mean, I've seen games like No Man's Sky come up. Do you think procedural generation is going to be a huge thing in the future?
Oh man, No Man's Sky is the best marketed game I've ever seen. It's like you're gonna fly to a blue planet with pink dinosaurs, and then you're gonna fly to an orange planet with purple dinosaurs, and then you're gonna go to a black planet with white dinosaurs. It'll be amazing. It'll be totally fucking incredible. Like, I actually think No Man's Sky will be incredible. I think it'll have great stuff, but the whole notion that it's procedurally modeling the entire universe, that's going to get pretty old really quick, because humans are fantastic at patterns. So we'll just see straight through it. Like, you'll spend a day going, oh man, I remember the ears on that thing was on that thing 4 planets ago, or whatever. So people poke holes in patterns all the time. What's interesting about the idea of proceduralism in the games industry is that making things costs a lot of money, and human time is the most valuable thing ever, because it's all you've got. You know, that's it. That's all we pay for. We pay for people's time. And so if you can find a way to get better things out of a person's time, then that's far better. So, like, I distinctly remember being at Chrome, and there was a wonderful guy called Mark Douglas, and he spent 2 years painting rocks. and I weep to this day about the lost 2 years of Mark Douglas, because there will never be a situation where that ever has to happen again. like a computer solves that fucking problem now. You get a substance designer and you press 8 buttons and Perlin noise just make rocks. It's like that's where proceduralism should be, of just removing tedious crap, you know. So that's my opinion.
That's great.
That's fine. Yeah.
So that's how you got the Film Victoria grant. You're on the board. So you just said your application. Because you rejected my application.
Whoa!
You got to, come on, man.
Well, I will say it is a panel. It is a panel. There are many people there. Not one voice does anything. But I had left the panel at that point. All of us had left the panel. The funny part about Mighty was that we met on the panel. So,
This actually isn't my question, though. I got a real question.
I got a real question. Okay. But
you keep telling the story.
well, when I turned up in Melbourne, I was this great resource because I didn't know anyone. So the Film Vic were like, oh, could you come and help because everybody else knows everyone. So can you just come and be on this panel and people won't know you, so they'll be intimidated. It's like cool. And then I met Ben, and we started just hanging out and going for coffees. And then I met Matt, and he was coming down from Ballarat and doing the Film Vic thing. And so we kind of became friends while on the panel, and it was because of that we left being on the panel. So once we figured out, like, actually, we get along, we could probably work together. Yeah, let's not do this. And so we left, and then we actually waited 6 months, and then we applied.
No, but my real question for you is, I actually built a game processing too that I put up, used that to launch on Android.
Yeah.
But what I'm really interested in, you mentioned Unity a few times. You're obviously not building anything in processing, you're just building in Unity to go cross-platform, because a lot of people ask me, hey, can you put it on iPhone, not knowing that it's a lot of work to go through some Java stuff in processing and anything else.
Oh yeah.
I was wondering how you do everything in Unity. That's how you cover all the platforms.
That's how we do it. So it's coming from the history of coming from like the 2000s, where we were making stuff on multiple consoles. Like you had PlayStation and Xbox and PC and Dreamcast and Nintendo. You had these proprietary engines that people would make in house. And what that looked like was there would be 20 people in a room working all the time, fixing bug after bug after bug and trying to implement feature after feature after feature. And then you had a game team that would go to use that and find that everything was broken. And so that's what game development was for years. You just had these in-house tools that you had to write the whole engine yourself to move it across. So the idea of writing something in processing, when I first started, I was looking at open frameworks, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can go from here to here to here and do all these things. But I hit a wall where there were, actually the wall I hit was putting in audio. I just wanted something to make noise.
Even though there are heaps of libraries now processors make noises.
Sure, but like, back then, but it's like, I wanted to make noise on iPhone.
But you can never do that anyway with processing.
Yeah, and so there's all these situations where I want to use this here, and so the usability of that became a real issue. Whereas the cost of using something like Unity was actually like a very sensible decision when I factored in the productivity and the amount of time that it would take for me to take an open source tool and get it to where I needed it to be. And then the other thing is, if I wanted to collaborate with somebody, people knew this tool, and it was easy to kind of like go, oh, you know how to use this? Great, we can work together because we can do this. So as much as I just adored processing, and I've got just gigs and gigs of projects that are written in it. Now I do use it, but I kind of just use it to write a few sketches and then just to prototype a few little things, and then
straight over C++ or whatever.
Oh, it's all C#. So we just do everything in C# in Unity. So yeah, I mean I hate the fact that it's a I buy an engine off the shelf and I don't have the keys and I can't tear it apart. But at the same time, like, it's actually nice that I don't need to do that.
And you never think of going Khronos 2DX?